Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aligning with Purpose, a podcast where we explore themes of finding your true purpose, from quitting corporate, moving cities, practicing holistic health, and more. Join me as we discover our purposes together. My name is Juli, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about FOMO and JOMO. So I'm sure everyone knows what FOMO is, fear of missing out, but we're also going to talk about JOMO, which is the joy of missing out, and why that mindset shift is so important for you to take control of your life. So before we get started, I'm going back to our Beauty and Humanity segment and talk about something that happened at the restaurant that I work at. Every week, I bring the Beauty and Humanity segment because I want us to have an opportunity to reflect on the good things that have happened in our days with people, with the life around us, just so we can have a different mindset shift in the way we're seeing things and the love and light that we can put out, right? But I'm going to talk about a moment that I had with a customer that wasn't so pleasant. And I bring this up because I think even in the unpleasant moments, I was able to find the beauty in, and I'll explain why. So last week, I was working at the restaurant, and when you're working a certain section in the restaurant, it gets extremely busy because all the tables in that section get seated all at once, and all those tables are also bigger parties. So you're having to deal with a lot of customers all at once. In my year of working at this restaurant, I have pretty pleasant interactions with most customers, and our rule is to fill their waters every time it goes below 50%. So if it's below 50%, their water should be filled immediately. I am pretty good about being attentive with my customers, and even if it's 70% full, I usually fill it. However, during this day and during this shift, it was very busy. I kept checking on the waters, and I knew that I was doing a good job because I was like, wow, today I am like extra on top of it with the waters. And I kept filling the waters, but this one girl at this one particular table, she felt like she was being ignored. And it's not that I was ignoring her. She felt ignored because her water cup wasn't filled. In my defense, her water cup wasn't touched a single bit. I kept looking at all the water glasses, and hers didn't need to be filled because it just wasn't, touched. There was a moment where I see from the corner of my eye, she goes and grabs the water decanter, or like the water pitcher. And she goes to get the water pitcher. She places it on the table, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a little weird because those are for us to touch and to fill the customers' glasses. We usually don't want that on the tables because that's not sanitary for us to be like having customers touch the water pitchers. Anyway, she puts the water pitcher on her table, and I'm overhearing her being like, she's skipping only our table and she's filling water in everyone else's table but ours. And I can tell the other girls at that table are uncomfortable because they know that there wasn't anything to complain about, yet this girl was really upset that I hadn't filled her water. I check in with them to see how they're doing, and she berates me in front of, well, not in front of the whole restaurant because, it's one section, but definitely the two tables around can hear. And she is like, today was our night to enjoy ourselves. I haven't been drinking I've been sober for the last month, and today was the day we started drinking again, and you were ignoring our table on purpose, and I just kept seeing you pour water for all the other tables, and you were skipping us, and I feel some type of way about it. And she kept going on and on and on. And since my first restaurant job, I have always taken the stance of the customer is always right, and I never ever argue against the customer. And even in this moment, I didn't argue with her, and I don't think that is in my nature for me to argue with a customer unless it's outrageously, out of pocket or something. However, in this moment, I was just kind of like, as I'm also growing in my own values as a person, not just a server, but as a person, I'm like, I can't believe I'm just taking this. This is absolutely not okay because it just was really uncalled for. I felt like in the moment, I was like, this person lacks awareness and it is completely rude. And I was feeling all these emotions, right? And this moment hadn't left me for a really long time. Even throughout the whole shift, the next couple of days, I kept thinking about it because even from feedback from my managers, like I perform well. And even that day, I knew that I was taking care of everyone. Even during that shift, everyone was very thankful for the service that I was giving. However, this one interaction just really didn't sit right with me. I was in the shower the other day thinking back on it, on how unpleasant this interaction was. And, shower thoughts are so real. It's really like therapy sometimes, and I started reframing it in my head where sometimes people have their own perspectives and you can't change that. Even though I felt so uncomfortable by it, and even though I knew that I was doing the best of my ability, and even though I wasn't purposefully ignoring that table, sometimes your effort isn't going to be translated to other people. And that's okay, because not everyone's going to understand you. And it applies to every situation, right? It doesn't have to just be in work, but it can be your effort in communication that you're giving people, or effort in the acts of service that you're doing for someone. Whatever the instance is, sometimes people aren't going to recognize that, and they're going to see it from their own lens of however they're seeing the instance, right? Or the situation, right? And if they're blind to it, they're not going to notice where you're coming from. And that isn't on you to take on, but it's obviously part of their growth journey. And you can't change that unless they decide to find that out for themselves. It's not black and white, right? Like sometimes there will be moments, especially if you're close, to be able to give that person that feedback. The point is, I went from feeling so much resentment, shame, irritation about the situation, and moments of feeling frustration, especially with people that day. With that perspective change, I was understanding that everyone is just all in their human growth journeys. I'm in mine, she's in hers, and it was a moment for me to understand that I could give grace to her and to the situation. Was it uncomfortable? Yes. Was it fun or pleasant? No. But can I take this moment and see that we are all growing? And that was also mirroring back to me this reflection that I needed to have. And that served something in me as well. It served as a reminder that humans are just growing together, like I've mentioned. And there can be beauty in us doing that together, because no one is perfect at the end of the day. I think that was what I took away from feeling all that negativity, is that sometimes you're going to come across uncomfortable and really irritating moments, and you're going to question humanity. And this is maybe a very minor case compared to all the other stuff that could happen, but you're going to not be able to find the beauty in humanity a lot of the times. It might be that you're feeling really discouraged, and I did feel that in this moment. However, sometimes those moments can get flipped because you understand that we're all human at the end of the day, or having a human experience at the end of the day. That is beautiful too, to be able to take those moments and learn together. We all have blind spots. We'll only recognize the things that we can and that we choose to recognize. Sometimes we could see the beauty in our flaws, the errors that we make, the mess ups, the irritation. All of that is so human. I hope we can all take the moment to change our perspectives when we need to, and also find the beauty when that's necessary. I'm sure that all of us at one point in our lives have felt FOMO, and FOMO is an acronym, fear of missing out. I have to share that I used to get FOMO really, really badly, especially in my teens and my early 20s. If I felt like I was missing out on something, I really felt bad about myself, and I couldn't shake that feeling off. Now, I don't get FOMO that frequently, only if it's like a huge event that I'm missing. But rarely these days I feel FOMO, because I enjoy my own company, and I've really learned to work through how to detach from the fear of missing out. And I'm going to teach you how to do that today. Let's first talk about why we even get FOMO in the first place, especially in this day and age. Obviously, social media is huge, and I don't even know when it started to get popular. I think it was when I was in junior or senior year of high school when Instagram started to pop off. Anyway, social media is obviously huge right now with everyone posting on their stories in real time, posting reels, showing their every move with the vacations that they're taking, the friends that they're hanging out with, parties that they're going to. Whatever the activity is, it is pretty much documented and shown for everyone to see. It's real-time awareness that you're getting. You can see your acquaintances, you could see your close friends hanging out, and if you don't get the invitation, maybe you're wondering, what did I do to not receive it? And you might be thinking, am I missing out on what they're doing? And all these thoughts start to run through your head. You see people spending time doing all these things, and you could be feeling like you're behind because you don't have as packed of a social calendar, or when you're taking a rest day for yourself, you see people hanging out and you're like, oh my gosh, should I be doing something? All these thoughts can be racing through your head and causing you to feel the fear of missing out. I will admit, in my early 20s, like I said, I felt FOMO a lot. It was like two parts, right? Let's say my friends were hanging out, and even if I was invited, I couldn't make it that day. I would constantly be thinking about what they're doing, what they could be talking about. And it was so tough to get myself to be present in the moment because my mind was at what they were doing and what kind of time that they were having. Or maybe there could have been an instance where I got excluded and then my self-worth was wrecked. So it was a continuous cycle in my 20s, especially on weekends. Every weekend, without fail, it was Friday and Saturday. If I didn't have plans to go out, I felt like I wasn't doing anything with my life, which is obviously not true. And I know that's not true at this point in my life. But when you're young, sometimes you just don't know because of the lack of awareness that you have and the lack of self-worth and growth that I had at that time. So I was equating my worth to what I was doing on a Friday night or Saturday night. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but I was letting external things validate what I felt internally. Those are the shifts that are so important to make because you don't ever want to rely on external things to make you feel happy or to feel like you're ever valuable enough, because you are, is the first thing. And two, it's so important to work through it because it will make you a stronger person and for you to not rely on external things as you move forward in your life. As a young adult, I think there are so many times where we just want to feel included and we want to feel belonging. And actually, that is for everyone. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. You want to feel included, and that is a normal human need and want. However, when you're young, external things can affect you more if you don't work through it. And that's exactly what was happening to me. Thankfully, I've, worked on this so much that I've gotten to a point again where I don't really have FOMO. Now I have the joy of missing out. So what changed for me? I really worked through my feelings, addressing them, reframing them, and then working on my self-worth. And it was that cycle on repeat. It was figuring out what the feeling was, addressing it, and reframing it in my mind. And then that in turn was me working on my self-worth. So your brain is very powerful, and sometimes it's fed all these things, and your brain has a way of telling you things that aren't true sometimes, and it's not helpful, right? So the more you're able to work on it and train it, you can really become stronger in the sense of self that you have. For example, I'm going to give 2 examples on how I work through it, and this could help you if you do have FOMO. The big question of this is, why did I feel FOMO, right? I think a lot of us, when we feel FOMO, we might not tend to address it. So it's something that we'll continue to feel through and through. If you don't address your feelings, you're never going to learn why you're feeling them, and you're going to constantly feel it because you haven't worked through it. So the big question was, why did I feel FOMO? And I had to think about all the reasons why. So the first example I'm going to give, which are real life examples that I had to really work through. When I felt FOMO, it was because I felt like I was losing a sense of belonging. And sometimes these thoughts are going to be really hard to admit to yourself and to break down, because you have to break down your ego in order for you to get past these feelings. And your ego doesn't like to feel hurt, right? It's protecting you, and you don't want to feel like you're wrong. However, you have to do that hard work in order for you to get through tough things. So when I was feeling like I was losing a sense of belonging, I had to go deeper, and I had to think why I felt that. Why was I feeling that? Was I scared that people would talk about me behind my back? Was I scared that they would get closer without me? Was I scared that I would ultimately lose these friends because they were hanging out without me? All these questions you have to confront and then understand where it was coming from. And for me, it was because I wanted control of the situation. When I wasn't getting included on certain things, or let's say I just couldn't go, I was scared that they would develop a stronger relationship without me. I was scared that they would talk about me. And that's obviously a very toxic way to think about it. This was when I was, in my earlier 20s. It was understanding that I needed to let go of that control that I had. At the end of the day, people are going to be people, and people are going to connect, and that is completely okay. It doesn't take away from your connection that you have with your friends and the people that are there. And if it does, then they just aren't the right people for you. And that's okay, because you're not going to bring everyone along with you on your journey of life. But the point is, after I was analyzing why I was feeling like I was losing a sense of belonging and really figuring out those questions in my head, I got to the root of it, which was my need for control in the situation, my need to control the narrative that they had of me, my need to control everything that was in relation to my relationships with everyone else. And it was understanding that it's always understanding the root thing that can allow you to finally start to lift those pieces up and to let it go. It's like when you have a muscle soreness, and if you don't work it out, it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger and become a bigger sore. But as you start to massage out the knot, you're working through the problems, and then you're slowly starting to release it. So the more you can go deeper and deeper and analyze where it's coming from, then you can, and confront it honestly, and you have to take away your ego for it. Then you can start to undo those knots, and then you really, really start to develop your self-worth with it, because you get to a point where, oh, it's okay if people are hanging out without me, because that is natural in life. People are gonna connect, and that's beautiful, and you want to root on your friends that are hanging out. You want them to also connect and build deeper relationships. You want to be on their side, and you want to always be supportive of that. And in order for you to become a supportive friend, you have to let go and relinquish what FOMO is for you, especially with your relationship with control. The second example that I'm going to give that I felt with FOMO was feeling like I wasn't doing enough. And I had to really analyze why I was feeling that. Was I comparing myself to other people and how much they were doing? Where was this feeling really coming from? And was I actually happy with my life and the path that I am on and everything that I'm doing for myself? The learning that came from this is that I have to accept my full self and my path, because me comparing myself to others, it was detracting, and I was taking away from who I am and what I bring to the table. This reflection made me realize that we are each so different and so unique, and everyone's going to have their unique individual paths. They have their path, I have my path, and that's beautiful. Nothing is going to look the same. So if someone else is hanging out on a Wednesday night, I don't have to feel like I'm not doing enough, because maybe they have their Thursday night free and I have plans on that night. And it's not even a game of comparison, but it's just to paint the picture that we each all have different journeys in life. And this is even disregarding FOMO, right? When it comes to our careers, when it comes to the different milestones that we're going to have in our lives, every single person's is going to look so different, and you can't compare it because you don't know what truly is happening behind the scenes in anyone's life. You can only stay focused on your lane and know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. I had to ask myself, am I truly happy with what I'm doing? And if the answer was yes, then I had to reaffirm all the reasons why I was happy with my path. And it was constantly reaffirming that and to train my brain to remember that my life was valuable and the journey that I was on, it wasn't to be compared to anyone else's. If I wasn't happy with my life, if that was the answer that I got, then what steps can I take to create the dream life that I want to? Maybe I'm seeing someone's, what they're doing, and I feel a little bit of inspiration, but it starts off as envy, right? You don't want to ever be in an envious state, by the way. But if you're feeling that, then take control from your point of view in your life to be like, okay, these are the steps I'm going to take so I could achieve X, Y, and Z for my life. And don't put that on anyone else because your life, again, is your journey. With these two examples, I really had to constantly and continuously work through it. Even if I had a breakthrough, let's say that I addressed it and my mindset, I understood where it was coming from and I worked through it. There could have been another trigger where I felt FOMO again and it was triggering different types of insecurities. Then it was readdressing them, even if it was the same issue, and working through that again and again. So it's just a cycle. You have to teach your brain that whenever you're feeling something, you feel it, you understand it, you create some action items for yourself to work through it and repeat back that cycle until you're at a place where you're like, okay, I feel really good about it now and I'm starting to finally clear it. Those are some of the small steps that you can take if you have FOMO. And I know that everyone feels FOMO in their lives from time to time. And not always is it going to be toxic. Not always is it going to be a detriment. But there are a lot of instances where it can be a negative thing in your life. And we all have that as human beings. And it's important to just understand that you're human and that's okay. But you're going to address it because you care about yourself and you want to up your self-worth. So we're going to work through our FOMO together. So when you shift over to the joy of missing out, your sense of self becomes a lot stronger and you start to make time for who truly matters. And that includes you because you won't sacrifice yourself just because you want to feel included and whatever the external or the internal fight is within you. When you're feeling like you're coming from a full cup, that's when you don't care if people are hanging out without you. You don't care if people are talking about you because your sense of self is unwavering. You'll only hang out with people when you're coming from a place of really wanting to do it as opposed to doing it because you feel like you have to. That leads to being more mindful of yourself, of your surroundings, of your worth, and everything that encompasses who you are. Going to a JOMO mindset also helps you go from a lack mentality to feeling a lot of gratitude in your life. For example, it could be your opportunities. It could be the relationships in your life. It could be your life path. It could be the opportunities in your life. Did I say that already? It could be any aspect of your life that is given to you. You're not comparing that against anyone else's because you're grateful for the things that you have because every life is just, again, so individual to each of us. When you're coming from FOMO, you're comparing, and comparison is the thief of joy. You don't want to compare because you have everything you will ever need in this life and you need to come back to her or him. You always need to come back to yourself because you are your own answer to achieving everything you want. There will always be times where we feel FOMO in our lives, and that's just a natural human experience for us to feel like we wish we were there and we couldn't make it, or we feel like we wish we were able to make the connections that someone else was. There's a multitude of reasons, right, of why we could feel FOMO, and it's just allowing yourself to be human and to understand that it's okay to feel that. And if it's getting to a point where it's eating away at you, then work through those things with the tools that I just gave you. You can apply that to anything in your life. It's really understanding the root cause of your thought. And then with those thoughts, analyze or think about why you're having those thoughts. So it's untangling all those things. And as you untangle it, and sometimes you'll have to do it over and over and over, but the more you untangle it, the more you'll start to heal in all those aspects, and it's gonna create a stronger sense of self for you. So I hope that we can all get to a point where we are feeling JOMO instead of FOMO. It sounds so funny when we use the acronyms like that, but anyways, the power is within you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I'm so grateful to put out another episode. And if you haven't followed this podcast already, please follow on Spotify, your favorite streaming platforms, on YouTube. And I'm also on social media on Instagram and TikTok at aligningwithpurpose.pod and at Juli Yoshi, JULIYOSHI. And I'm looking forward to catching you guys all at the next episode. Have a great day and see you at the next one.